Charlotte Hayes learned to stop flinching at the screaming on her second day in the camp. By the third week, she'd learned something far more useful. The Raveth cubs could understand her when she whispered during the procedures, even through their agony. "Breathe with me," she murmured to the smallest one, a juvenile named Kesh whose acidic blood had already burned through 3 pairs of surgical gloves. The guards had strapped him to the harvesting table, and Dr. Venn was preparing to excise another strip of regenerative tissue from his flank. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. Kesh's triple-pupilled eyes found hers. His breathing stuttered, then matched her rhythm. "You're doing great," Charlotte continued, adjusting the anesthetic drip when Venn wasn't looking. The dosage they authorized was criminally insufficient, just enough to keep the cubs from thrashing and contaminating the samples. "Remember what I taught you. Your body is a room. The pain can't follow you if you close the door." It was a technique developed for human soldiers undergoing torture resistance training. Charlotte had never imagined using it on children. The procedure took 40 minutes. Kesh whimpered but didn't scream. When the guards removed him, he pressed his clawed hand briefly against Charlotte's arm, the Raveth gesture of gratitude. That night in the medical wing supply closet where she slept, Charlotte added another entry to her hidden documentation. Tissue sample RV09047. Subject: juvenile male, approximately 4 standard years. Regenerative capacity declining. Psychological deterioration evident in. The paper was hidden in a hollowed-out disinfectant canister. If they found it, she'd be executed. She kept writing anyway. Humans, she discovered, were terrifyingly good at hope. The riot started at dawn on day 73. Charlotte was in the medical wing when the first explosion shook the facility. Through the reinforced windows, she saw guards running, heard weapons fire, watched the transport shuttles lift off in panicked formation. Then the lockdown klaxon screamed, and the blast doors sealed. She found all 9 cubs in the recovery ward, already trying to claw through the reinforced door. "Stop," she commanded, and to her surprise they did. Fear scent rolled off them in waves, sharp like burning copper. "The guards are gone," she said. "We're trapped, but we're also free. Understand?" The oldest cub, Reith, tilted his head. "Free to die slowly instead of quickly." "Free to survive," Charlotte corrected. She took inventory with hands that refused to shake. 3 weeks of supplies, maybe 4 if she rationed. No communication, no rescue expected. The infection started on day 8. It should have been impossible. Raveth biology rejected foreign pathogens like hydrogen rejected flame. But when Kesh's surgical site began weeping green-black fluid, Charlotte understood. The constant tissue harvesting had broken something fundamental in their immune systems. She had a half-empty bottle of broad-spectrum antibiotics, bandages, and her field medic training. It would have to be enough. Sepsis claimed Vora first, despite Charlotte working for 16 hours straight to save her. The cub died with her head in Charlotte's lap, whispering for her mother. Charlotte wrapped the small body in clean sheets and kept working. Necrotic tissue spread through Reith's shoulder. Charlotte amputated with a sterilized kitchen knife and a prayer, while the other cubs held him down and sang hunting songs to cover his screams. She'd long since run out of real anesthetic. Keth developed an abscess that swelled his entire side. She drained it with a sharpened spoon, flushed the wound with boiled water, and talked him through the pain with the same meditation techniques she'd taught them during the harvesting. "You're in the room, the door is closed, the pain is outside." On day 19, Murrah stopped breathing. Charlotte performed CPR for 30 minutes, cracking ribs with each compression, until one of the other cubs gently pulled her away. 7 cubs left. Charlotte documented everything with hands that trembled from exhaustion and malnutrition. She'd given most of her rations to the cubs. They needed the calories for healing. Her documentation had become religious practice, the only thing separating her from complete collapse. Someone needed to know what had happened here. Someone needed to pay. The Liberation Forces breached the facility on day 22. They found Charlotte in the medical wing, delirious with fever from an infection in her own hand, surrounded by 7 Raveth cubs who formed a protective circle around her. She'd turned the ward into a triage center, each cub's status meticulously tracked on the walls in her own blood when the markers ran out. The Raveth Coalition forces arrived 3 hours after the humans and immediately demanded Charlotte's arrest. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented her work in the camp as collaboration, showing footage of her assisting in the harvesting procedures. They called her a war criminal, a butcher, a human who'd tortured Raveth children. Then Kesh took the stand. "She gave us extra medicine when the guards weren't watching," he said quietly, his translated words filling the courtroom. "She taught us how to survive the pain. She wrote down what they did to us every time because she said someone needed to remember." Reith testified next, then Vesh, then all 7 cubs, one by one. They described how Charlotte had sabotaged experiments by contaminating samples, how she'd fought to keep them cleaned, comfortable, treated like people instead of livestock, how she'd nearly died keeping them alive during the lockdown. "She could have eaten more food," Kesh said. "She could have saved herself first. Humans do that, they survive, but she gave us her rations, she gave us everything." The prosecution presented one final piece of evidence: Charlotte's hidden documentation. 73 days of detailed records, written in the careful hand of someone who knew she might not survive to testify, but needed the truth preserved anyway. The judges deliberated for 6 hours. Charlotte Hayes was acquitted of all charges. She was also in a ceremony that took 3 days and required a legal precedent that broke 17 Raveth laws, formally adopted into 7 families simultaneously. "You're our pack mother now," Kesh explained, pressing his forehead to hers in the traditional gesture. His acid blood no longer scared her. "Raveth don't abandon family, ever." Charlotte, who'd stopped flinching at screaming 70 days ago, finally allowed herself to cry. Humans were terrifyingly good at hope. But apparently, they were also pretty good at love. Subscribe to the channel to catch all our new stories.